Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Do You Remember podcast. My name is Adam Anwar and I am your host, and today I am joined by lead singer of Rivet City, Jake Breeze.
Hello there, how are we doing, folks? We all right?
Yeah, man, all's good. And today, me and you, we're going to be talking about Oasis and their debut album, Definitely Maybe. So, for the people out there who might not know about it, give us a brief synopsis.
I mean, if you've not heard Oasis, you're either under the age of reason or, have been living in a hole in the ground.
Well, the little idiots is what they are until they're 18.
Definitely Maybe. I think it came out in 1994 on, it was Creation Record, and one of, if not the seminal Britpop album. Completely defined the 90s. It had a very interesting recording process, full of dramas. Came out and basically catapulted, some working class guys from Manchester into heights of superstardom that very few human beings ever get to sniff near. Usually reserved for like Roman emperors and leaders of men. You know what I mean? And it just completely changed the game music-wise. I think it changed the game for a lot of people. Most people, I think, who are making music now in the UK have been inspired by Oasis in some way, and, spawned, two of music's more interesting figures. I mean, I'm more team Liam Gallagher than I am Noel. I think Noel's a bit of a weird one, but Liam, I think, is an icon in terms of fashion and in terms of his voice and in terms of his stage persona and his offstage persona. It sort of define that era where I think in a similar way that punk gave the middle finger to progressive rock, I think Britpop and Oasis sort of gave middle finger to the larger excesses of the 80s, when it got a bit too much. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Talk, but I mean that sort of ilk of it was starting to get a bit proggy again, and I think Oasis brought it back down to earth a bit.
Well, let's carry on and talk about a great time.
So when was the first time that you remember hearing about Oasis?
Christ, I don't know. I think in high school. I think I must have been 12 or 13, maybe 12.
Mm-hmm.
And my mate Tom, I think Sam got me into them as well, but I had a couple of friends at school who were into the music, more so even than I was at the time. I sort of got into Oasis quite late on in the game, considering. But yeah, and they just put them on and something just clicked. Like, I mean, obviously everyone's heard of Wonderwall and things like that, but I couldn't nail down the first time I heard them. I just kind of, I don't know. I think
you're in a similar position to me, where like they were kind of like always like an ever present in your life, and it's just at a certain point is when you really dive into them and like really become a fan. Does that sound?
Yeah, because as well, like, my parents had a couple of Oasis CDs, and I was very struck by the artwork of them both. They had What's the Story, Morning Glory, and Definitely Maybe, and I was very, very much struck by the artwork of them. I think it's quite striking to put it bluntly. But yeah. Like I said, I think you sound like the same as me. Yeah, basically, that's right. You sort of just have a sort of undercurrent of awareness of them. You know what I mean?
Definitely. Like for you, what was the appeal? What made Oasis like really appeal to you?
I just think the way that whilst they weren't anything groundbreaking, I think they took a lot of elements of, Beatles-esque type music and just made it modern and wrote songs that were like their lyrics, even though they're hardly, works of profound poetry. At the same time, they had these little sparks, these little couplets of beauty interspersed throughout it all, and just the way that they use guitar tones in such a in-your-face wall of sound way, it just really fascinating music to listen to.
Definitely, and for me as well, like, I always saw Oasis in my life as like a real gateway to guitar music, because before that I was never really into it. It was never really my scene, but Oasis was always the kind of music which, as a young male, I could easily relate to, and it was very kind of lad rock on its surface. Like, yeah, I can appreciate this, and it's very in your face guitar, like you said, and like very loud, and the content of the lyrics as well.
Well, I think as well, it's quite communal music. You can just put it on in a group of people, whereas my tastes up until that time, I found them a lot more sort of solo music. You know what I mean? How best to describe this kind of music to listening to just on your own. I think it's
like what?
I mean, sort of the later albums, the later albums of Led Zeppelin and Nirvana was a massive one, and then getting into, like, I was big into my reggae as like a kid because my dad was way into it and like introduced me to that. So I sort of came into music from a weird angle, and then obviously people like because my dad was a big influence on my music, and people like Shelley Ann Orphan and Talk Talk and the Blue Nile and stuff like that. And then sort of, so my music taste was quite kind of sort of best way to describe this. Less about big choruses and catchiness, and more just about the experience of it. I mean, definitely the songs are still catchy, and they definitely have rhythm, and they have hook lines, but just less in your face. You know what I mean? And then I found that and was like, oh, I can see how a massive stadium full of people could bounce to this. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of like a massive stadium full of people, have you ever been to see Oasis live?
I've not. No, I've seen both the brothers in most of their solo incarnations, but like I've never actually been to see them live. I'm not even well. I probably would go, but I don't know. I have a thing about the nostalgia thing. Like, don't get me wrong, they're fantastic, but like I think to say are they relevant now is a very different question. You know what I mean? And I'm not even sure if going seeing them now, if I did go to see them, would be the same experience as maybe experiencing them in like the early 2000s. You know what I mean?
Right, it's interesting you say that because I kind of still feel like they are not the relevant thing. I think yeah, you're right with that, but I think they are kind of on par with how they were. I think probably even better now than they were in the early 2000s. But like obviously when we go back to all the way like back to 94, 95, 96, and the huge shows they were doing in those days, it is a completely different ball game. But no, so what did you think then when you went to see did you see was it BDI that you saw live and like Liam Gallagher solo too?
BDI is only one of two bands that I've ever walked out of, and BDI
Really?
BDI I walked out of twice because I saw him at consecutive Leeds festivals. Didn't realise who was playing. The first time I stayed for a bit and then was just kind of like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm having this. And
Do you know what? I did the same thing. We might have been at the same Leeds festival.
Were the Streets playing?
I can't. Do you know? I think Azalea Banks was on before them or someone like that. And then
mate, we went to the same Leeds festival. Yeah.
And I walked out of them as well.
Yeah, mate. It seems a lot of people did because they just weren't. Bless Liam, he had a crack at it, but they just weren't very good. Do you know what I mean? Like BDI, they just weren't very good. The Roller was all right. You know what I mean? There was a couple of tunes that were all right, but they just, I think BDI, they're not gonna. I don't think people are going to be writing books about them in the next 10 years. Let's put it that way.
Definitely, and it felt like the opposite of a vanity project. It felt like a desperation project, didn't it? Like, No's left, let us show that we're all together, and it just didn't work, did it?
Oh, and as well, I did feel bad for Liam at the time, though, because you've got to imagine, like, there's no one who loves being an Oasis more than Liam Gallagher. Even if, you know what I mean? There's no human on earth who loves Oasis as much as Liam Gallagher. And, like, I can imagine, having that bomb dropped on you and your brother leaves and the main driving songwriting force of the band goes, and then you just think, oh my God, like my livelihood has just disappeared. Like the project that I've been working on since I was a teenager has just disappeared. I can imagine that is a big shock, and the only way you can think to deal with it is, well, we've got to keep going, or we've got to keep, making tunes. And I just think, like you say, you're right, desperation move. I just think that there had to be a way of just keeping the dream alive for them. Whereas Noel, I think, had that plan all along. I think Noel was always planning on going solo at some point.
Yeah, you kind of get the impression that he feels a bit like he's a lot bigger than the rest of the band, doesn't he? And but what did you think of like Liam's solo project then afterwards when he went?
It had some good singles. It's a bit hit and miss. It had some good singles. Yeah, there was a few, but I just think, to be honest with you, I think his voice has passed it. I think he needs to change his style. What I'd love to see, like for example, he did a song called Scorpio Rising with Def in Vegas.
Yeah.
And that, I think if he would have gone in that direction after Oasis, I think it would have been fascinating for it to listen to, because with that kind of like more sort of ambient psychedelic production value, I think that would have been amazing. Like for example, it's why Gas Panic is one of my favorite songs by Oasis, because of that weird kind of fucked up psychedelic vibe that I think Liam Gallagher's voice actually lends itself to better. So I was gutted that I didn't hear anything like that from Liam Gallagher when he went solo. But that being said, I mean, he's hardly a virtuoso. Do you know what I mean? Like, I get it, and I think a lot of it though. I think a lot of Oasis was having a really good producer, because, like, for example, Wonderwall. Wonderwall, I think, while it is one of the best pop songs ever created, at the same time, what ties it all together, what makes it, is that cello in the background when it comes into the second verse. That is what makes that track beautiful. Just that little melody underneath the vocals, even though it's just a standard sort of 3-chord wonder progression, just do 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 do. You know what I mean? Or 4-chord wonder even. It still gives it this kind of depth of sound that's just fucking mind-blowing. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of Oasis tracks are like that, and that's what has been missing from both of their solo projects, was that kind of production.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I never really thought about it that way, but yeah, definitely that cello that does come in, it does add like an extra layer that does take it to another level. But yeah, that is very interesting. Where did you see Liam? That you said you saw?
Oh no, I only saw him I only ever saw him at Leeds Festival. I've seen Noel Gallagher for free now, like 3 times at big festivals, because we played a few festivals last year in the Northeast. So there was This Is Tomorrow Festival, Hit the North, and then we also did, what was the other one we did in fucking Newcastle? Christ, there was another one. This Is Tomorrow. What the fuck were they called? I can't remember. We played a few festivals and you were playing at them. And not the most inspiring man to watch live. Wasn't impressed. I mean, it was fine because the whole band were fucking blasted, so we had a great time either way. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. You know what I mean? I wouldn't go see him again. I wouldn't pay to go see him.
Yeah, I think I might have seen him at a fest. I can't remember if it was Leeds or one of those. Maybe seen the Park, something like that. But I saw him live and I thought it was okay. But yeah, I kind of felt like he felt he was above everything else and that he was gracing us with his presence. And it didn't feel like that charismatic, magnetic figure that like you can act like that. It didn't really feel like that at the time. But I saw Liam Gallagher, his first ever solo show.
Really?
It was at the Ritz in Manchester, and it was about a week after the Manchester bombings. So there was like 22, 23 candles on the stage, you know, to signify everyone that had been lost. And like it was really eerie because one, he kind of announced it like last minute. I think like the week before he announced it, I'm having a show. And it was so hard to get tickets because it was the Ritz, and I managed to get 2, and I was like, boom, I'm in there. And then all the hyped up security outside. It's one of the first gigs in Manchester after the arena thing, and it was a very weird scenario. But yeah, once we were inside, he was absolutely awesome. He played mostly Oasis, and he played some of his new stuff, which we weren't really there for, but still, that was one quality gig.
Yeah, and like, well, that's why I wanted to ask you about it. Like, I mean, because I've never seen him live. I mean, I've watched like live recordings of him, but like, I've only ever seen that aspect of his stage presence. So like, what's he like live? Is it now? Do you know what I mean?
It was a bit of a weird one because it was his first one. He kind of felt a bit like, not unsure, but it was like he was testing the crowd a little bit and like how they're going to react to just me on stage. But once he got rocking and rolling, and once he got into all the Oasis classics, it was like nothing had ever changed. And especially inside the Ritz, it's such a small venue. It's so intimate for Liam Gallagher anyway, because he's used to arena shows and stuff like that.
Did he have a live band? Yeah,
he did, and he had. I can't remember his name. One of the guys from Oasis, one of the guitarists.
There's Giggsy in there, Gwigsy or whatever. Bonehead.
It was Bonehead. That's who it was. Yeah, is he like the balding one? He looks a bit like. Yeah, that guy. Yeah, he had him, and that was really good that he brought him out on stage because it kind of felt like a little bit of the old, but he's also trying to break out on his own. So it was a good experience in that aspect. Well, I mean, besides getting covered in piss and all
that. That's to be expected these days, my dear. Don't worry.
Yeah, that's the standard, isn't it? But yeah, let's jump into this album then. Let's go through it track by track.
Okay.
So we start off with Rock and Roll Star, which I mean, I just want to hear your opinions on it. I want to let you talk about it, so you fire away.
Okay. Well, I mean, this song, not my favourite. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a really jumping tune. And I mean, shit. But when we used to play covers, like we used to cover this, and it did make you feel like a fucking don when we used to play it. But in terms of the actual track, yeah, I think as an opening to an album, it's a bold choice. The lyrics are hardly the works of Byron, but it does its job. You know what I mean? I've got to admit, not my favourite on the album, but I think as a way to make a statement as a band, opening up with that, yeah, I think was an interesting choice.
Definitely, I completely agree with that. It is a real statement track. It's the first album. It's the first song on there, and it's like an optimistic "I'm a dreamer" kind of song. Like, yeah, tonight I'm a rock and roll star. In my dream, like my dreams are real.
Like, in my mind, the dreams are real. Yeah,
that's it. Yeah, in my mind, my dreams are real. And it's such like an optimistic song, and it's like you're kind of rooting for it. Like from my perspective, anyway, I'm kind of rooting for them. Like, yeah, in your mind, your dreams are real. Like, come on, you can do this. Like, you can be this rock and roll star that you're pretending to be on the first song. Because at this point, we can look at them now and say, yeah, they are mega rock stars. But at this point, they're kind of just pretending a little bit, aren't they? They've not really made it yet. And,
exactly.
I love it from that aspect. How like at this point, it's 4 lads off a council estate in Manchester. Who were just going for it, and they're saying, listen, we want to be stars, and coming out with this is just wow.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice one. Then we move on to the next song, Shaker Maker, which I think was another one of the singles.
Yeah, Shaker Maker, I think it might well be my favourite song on this album. Just because the way that, again, like the psychedelic sort of roots of it, and like that little slide guitar in the beginning, it just sounds like an acid trip, doesn't it? Like, it's just beautiful. Like, the lyrics are weird, and like, you know, I'm sorry that I just don't know. I hope I said I told you so. And it's just, I know that apparently it's been ripped off another tune, but who cares? Like, it's amazing, isn't it? It's just a tune that you can just sit there and be like, yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think they kind of really made it their own. Is it the Coca-Cola song that like?
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, I think it is this one, isn't it? Yeah, I think they kind of made it their own though, and like.
Yeah.
But there's always. I mean, I'm a huge fan of hip hop, and there's always an element of sampling stuff in hip hop and making it your own. And like Kanye West is one of my favorites. He's really known for that. And I've got no issue with someone kind of taking parts from someone else and making it their own, which I think Oasis really did. A lot of the negative people like say like they ripped off the Beatles and all that stuff, but you know they made their own music at the end of the day, whether they based it off something or not.
Yeah, who cares if they ripped it off? Like, if it sounds good, who gives a shit? Like, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like, this is what I don't get about that whole thing. Like, don't get me wrong, I understand people's need to have creative, you know, like a creative patent over things, but at the same time, come on, like, it's just, you know, everyone does it. Everyone rips off someone. You need to be sort of inspired somewhere. And if that shows through, so be it. But as long as it makes a cracking track, like, who's bothered? You know what I mean?
Definitely, and a lot of the times as well, you can be influenced by someone and not even realise it. There was that old joke in South Park. I don't know if you watch South Park, but there was that episode, wasn't there? Simpsons did it, and they're trying to come up with all these new ideas, and it's like, oh, Simpsons did it, and Simpsons did it. And obviously, we all know from the world of like comedy, a lot of people who do one-liners. People say that Milton Jones has already done every single one-liner, and any one-liner who comes up with a joke, Milton Jones has already done it in the past. So, there's always that kind of element.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, but you know what? As a track, yeah, fantastic. Like, loved it. Yeah, fantastic song. I don't know. I think it's one of them songs that doesn't get enough love on the album as well. You know what I mean? Even though it was a single.
I agree with you. It's not one of the mainly hype mainly hype songs, is it? But one that is the next song, "Live Forever." Now, what are your recollections on this one?
Least favorite song on the album.
Really?
Yeah, genuinely, I really don't like this song. Again, we used to cover this. I think maybe the fact that we used to cover this in pubs has like scarred me forever with it, because like it just, I don't know, like when people get pissed enough and you start playing this song, you start seeing people's, domestic lives flowing out their face. Like, you just can't, come on, mate. It's okay. It's just a song. We're just a band playing a song, and they're just like, baby. It's like, all right, okay. But yeah, I don't like the melody. I don't like the chorus. You know what I mean? Like, maybe. Nah, I'm all right. No, thank you. Hard pass from Mr. Breeze.
Wow, I'm surprised that you went that way, because I really do love Live Forever. I can't get away from it. It's one of my favourite Oasis tracks, and it's like one of the big singles as well that they did, isn't it? And I don't know, I can't. But I haven't had the same experiences as you of like playing it live.
Yeah.
But have you got any like specific stories about like playing Oasis live or?
Yeah, loads, mate. So like, anyone in no band will know when you're playing in pubs when you're starting, like. And you know what? Even like past that point to make a bit of cash on the side, like the amount of time. I bet you hear someone say, "Do you know any Oasis?" At least once every set.
Yeah.
Like, it's coming, especially if you're up north. And I remember once we played this pub called the Canary Tavern. It was in Little Lever, and there were this. Like we were called Albino Gorilla then.
Right.
Yeah, one of the worst band names of all time. Funny story about that, actually. They were an albino rights charity, which is a fairly, I mean, it's a good cause. Like, I get
Sure.
it, because
Yeah.
Like, a lot of bad shit happens to albino folks like all around the world, and yeah, and they popped up on our Twitter. And they were like, I pretty much remember the tweet verbatim. It was something along the lines of, "An interesting name. Is this championing the cause of albino people everywhere, or just a sign of more intolerance?" And I couldn't be arsed, so I just tweeted back, just saying, "Nah, just fucking banging tunes, mate." And they never replied to me. So I was like, "Haha, I win." But yeah, we played this pub called the Canary Tavern, and they got to know us. Like, they kept asking us back, and there was this bloke who every single time in the set, in the set, would come up to me here and be like, "Are you playing Live Forever tonight? Are you playing Live Forever?" Like, while I'm trying to sing a tune.
Yeah.
I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, this is... And I mean, luckily, like, we rehearsed quite a lot. So like, after a while, it gets to muscle memory. So like, you can just do your thing. You know what I mean? Like, there's been times on stage where I've been thinking, "Oh, mate, you know what I mean? What kind of pizza am I going to get after this?" Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
While I'm like performing a tune. But like, so it got to the point where he was just white noise, but he did it every time. Stood bang in front of me when there's people like trying to watch. Bang in front, and he was massive as well. And just completely blocked the stage for a good 5 minutes while he's having a chat with me, and all our band are looking at me, pissing their sides. But yeah. So I mean, now that I say it, that sounds like quite a sort of civilian memory, but it seemed funny at the time.
Oh no, it would be, wouldn't it? Like you're
Yeah.
trying to perform and someone's right in your face trying to have a conversation with you about
Well, it's
something.
it's like when you're doing stand up, like, and you get heckled for the first time. Do you know what I mean? You just don't know what you're doing. Do you know what I mean? You're like, fuck. Because I mean, you do a lot more stand up than I do, and like, I mean, does it get easier handling hecklers? Because I mean, it gets easier handling people in music. So I'm assuming it gets easier doing hecklers.
Yeah, it does. And like, if you don't really have a comeback, there's always a lot of like generic stock comebacks that you can just say. And yeah, I mean, the best part is when you do have a good comeback, then you can like take the roof off the entire place. But like, when you don't have a comeback for it, you can just say something quite generic. And just because you've got the microphone and you're the louder voice, people will like get on your side more.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Because I always like, I got scared about how to handle that. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm trying to get back into it after all this blows over, and yeah, I'm just thinking about it now, because it's just not the same as music. You know what I mean? And it's well hard to just sort of stand there, try and do your thing while someone's in your ear. You know what I mean?
I'm quite interested about your unique perspective because obviously you've done both, and you're a frontman, aren't you, as well? So like, it's not like
Yeah.
you're in the background, you're playing guitar. You're the one who's got to take it. You're the one with the microphone as well. So you've got that unique perspective of doing both. So what would you see like the main like similarities and like differences are?
So the ways in which they're similar in that if you really care about it, if you really care about doing it, then the actual reaction that you get in doesn't actually matter that much. It's more about the execution being done as perfectly as you can do it. Like you'll know yourself, like when writing jokes, the matter of a word being in one place or another, or the matter of how long of a pause you leave, everything is so minute detail. Like you get it down to such a fine point that when you nail it, the elation when you nail a tune to when you nail a joke is very, very similar. It's almost indistinguishable. It's just you feel like that rush in your stomach. Do you know what I mean? When you really fucking nail it and you're like, yes, I know I fucking nailed that. And I mean, at that point, even though the reaction is usually good when you do nail it, it's almost irrelevant. Do you know what I mean? So that's a big similarity. I say as well, definitely the fact that it's very, very thankless, except in short doses. Very much the same in that, like, the uncertainty will drive you mad, but also the same in that, like, you just live for that good night. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in fairness, we're quite lucky in that, like, we're starting to build a little fan base now. And it's the shows where you're just playing to no one are becoming fewer and further between, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, we're still nowhere near having made it yet, but it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? In the same way that comedy is, like, it doesn't really matter. It's about honing your craft. You know what I mean? And staying in there and hanging in there. You know what I mean? And also, I think the performance element of it, how, I don't know about you, but personally, I feel more like myself when I'm doing music or doing stand-up than I do the rest of the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely, because that's your time to kind of express yourself, and people are waiting for kind of your opinion. Well, I can only talk about stand-up, but people are kind of waiting for your opinions, even if they don't agree with it. They're waiting for it, so you can be a bit more free. And I talk about a lot of stuff in my stand-up that typically in my usual life I don't talk about, and if I do talk about it, I'm only doing it more since I've done it in my stand-up, and I've kind of made like more free to kind of talk about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Nice one. But yeah, I can imagine how frustrating that would be if, like, because just to make the comparison between music and comedy, like, you get, I don't know if you've ever had this, but like, I get so many like old white blokes coming up to me like, have you got any racist stuff? Have you got any racist jokes? Or hey, try this one, and then they'll fucking tell me some shit joke, and I'll be like, all right, nice one. And I suppose that's the similar thing where they're like, "Oh, do you know any Oasis, or have you tried doing this?"
See, is that quite common for people to ask you, do you have any racist jokes?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes they'll be a bit more tactful about it. They'll be like, "Oh, you can't see anything anymore, can you? Oh, like, what do you think as a comedian? What do you think as a comedian? You can't see anything." You know what they're getting at, and then, like, I always fob it off at first, being like, "Oh, you can kind of get away with whatever you want to get away with if you're saying it right."
Yeah.
And then they'll always come back with, "Oh, but you can't say racist stuff anymore. Oh, you can't."
I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh, but it's just, I'm picturing you, because, like, I don't know you mega well, but, like, I'm just like, from what I know of your personality, I'm just picturing you inside just going, oh, here we go. You know what I mean?
Exactly, yeah. And sadly, it's becoming more of a usual occurrence. But I don't mind it. But it's sometimes annoying. But I think it makes for a better story afterwards when you're in the car home, and like, yeah, because I drive around with a lot of like the other Asian acts and stuff like that. And like, obviously, they don't get people saying to them, "Have you got any racist material?" And people say it to me before I go on stage, and like, they're like mind blown because they've been in the same room as me. Like, what? Someone said that? And I'm like, yeah, like that's what they want, but they don't want to say it to you because they.
That must kind of fuck you up a bit, because you're heritage is Pakistani, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like that must be fucking weird, man. Because like the literally the only reason they're saying it to you is because they're like, oh well, this guy isn't, stereotypically Asian, so therefore, do you know what I mean? Like that must be a really weird experience.
It is. I kind of found through my life that people, especially if they don't know my name yet, they're just looking at me. They just know me as Adam. I think they feel like they're a bit more free to be racist around me, and then they find out afterwards, and then they kind of tone it back. But like, yeah, I find that it's interesting. I mean, I don't take it to heart. I know people are just they do what they're there for fun. They're there, and that's what they've grown up on. They've grown up on racist jokes. They've grown up on people down the pub saying racist jokes and stuff like that. And they probably don't mean anything bad by it. And I kind of take it as okay, as long as they laugh at my set and they don't mean bad about it. I can kind of let it slide.
I mean, where are you from originally again? In terms of town in Britain, I mean. I'm
from Bolton.
You're from Bolton? Oh, mate, so you know then, mate. Like, you've grown up in the same kind of place as me. Like, it's just... I think people don't understand it. Like, it's fucking rife in, like, working class towns, mate. It freaks me out. Like, looking at it now as an adult, once you've grown up and moved away from it. Like, because, I mean, we live in quite a multicultural, city now. And, like, in Manchester. But it's just... It's fucking rife, isn't it? And I just find it baffling. You know what I mean? It's like, what? How are we not past this? You know what I mean? It's fucking nuts.
But yeah, it is interesting how different cities are different culturally, but I suppose it's all part and parcel. You get that everyone, it'd be a bit boring if everywhere was the same, I suppose.
Oh yeah, I mean, but at the same time, if everywhere was the same in that there were no more racists, I'd probably take that.
Yeah, that's true. That'd be a nice compromise.
Yeah, I'd have that.
Not to give you jokes away, but I love that. Don't know if you started off with this once, but you came on stage and you went, I know, I look like a racist or something like that, and I thought it was brilliant.
I mean, I do though. Like, it's
you
weird.
do, you completely do. But that self-assessment was absolutely beautiful. I'm telling you. Oh,
thank you, mate. Yeah, like. It's something that like has always kind of because it taps into like a big anxiety that I have. I don't want to, you know what I mean? I've never wanted to be anywhere near that. You know what I mean?
Sure,
and like, it is funny though how once you get a skinhead, like, and you have an accent, assumptions are made. Do you know what I mean? If you act in a certain way, stuff like that. You definitely feel it. Definitely different. I've got to admit, having the skinhead, like, I can imagine when you're a bit older. Because I mean, a lot of like older men are bald, but like when you're a skinhead at like 20, 24, 23, you know what I mean? It's different assumptions are made. It's weird.
Yeah, it kind of seems like a choice and like that you're trying to make a statement. But no, I never had that opinion of you before I met you. And obviously, when you made that joke and I looked at you as you said it, I was like, "That's bang on. That's so good."
Well, in fairness, because I started as well dressing as sort of racistly as I could.
Right.
Like just sort of like just sort of like that sounds weird, but as in like for gigs, I try and choose like the most matte, blank, boring colours that I could, so that there was nothing about my clothing that could give away my personality. Do you know what I mean? Well, that's what I was trying to do, and then like that's why I think that joke used to land so well, is because like instantly people will judge you on the thing that stands out the most. So like if I can make my body as pale and matte as possible, then they're focusing on my head and my face. So
yeah, sure.
You know what I mean? So, but in fairness, that may also just like be me losing my mind at 3 a.m. in my room. Do you know what I mean? I don't know.
No, I think gimmicks are good. I mean, I'm lucky in the sense that like my ethnic background is my gimmick, and like because it's so mixed and diverse, and obviously I'm not born in any of those places. It gives me a lot to play around with in that sense. But no, I think that's quality, like that you do that.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Right, next tune, let's have it.
There you go. So next up we have Up in the Sky. Go for it.
I do like this one. Again, lyrics are hardly, Shakespeare, but it's just a feel-good tune, innit? You know what I mean? And just listening to Liam Gallagher, I've got to admit, the welcome to my world, like the little falsetto bit, like it's shite, but for some reason it just works and it's great and it's fun. Do you know what I mean? It's a really fun tune, Up in the Sky. Like I really like it. Yeah.
I think this is like one of the kind of nursery rhymey kind of Oasis songs a little bit. Do you know what I mean?
Well, let's hear one of your songs then.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's quite sort of ambling and like jaunty, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all right. It's all right. I don't mind it too.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's hard. It was never going to change the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. But next up is a song that I think is much better, Columbia.
If there was gold medals for taking drugs for England, I'd have won a shitload.
Yeah, Columbia's a banging tune. I'd really like Columbia. I think as well, one of the tunes that gets nowhere near as much love as I think it deserves. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love that opening line. There we were, now here we are. All this confusion, nothing's the same to me. Like, it kind of doesn't really make sense, but it just, I don't know, it makes you feel a certain way. It just feels like strong and big and like a perfect opening to a song. Like, whoa, what the fuck's going on over there? Like, it's really eye-catching.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And like the backing vocals are great, and it's just a fucking top track.
And like the lyrics where it's like, I can tell you the way I feel because the way I feel is also new to me.
It's also new to me, yeah.
Yeah, it's just, it's one of those where, like, you're right, it's not very poetic, but just the way it's written or the way it's delivered, it just comes across so well. And like, that's one of the real strengths of Noel Gallagher and Liam Gallagher's kind of partnership, is I kind of feel like Noel Gallagher could never deliver these lyrics as well as Liam.
As well as he did, no way.
He was so lucky not so lucky, but like just that perfect mesh of those brothers who kind of don't get along, but yeah, I can bring this to the table and I can bring this to the table, and together we're going to have a right good meal.
Yeah, it's going to be, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful assessment, that, to be honest. It just, it does encapsulate the friction, but yet also the sort of chemistry of the brothers especially, but just the entire band, you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And next up, there was Supersonic.
Again, not one of my favourites. I think it's a good tune, but again, I'm just not keen on the vocal delivery or the way the guitars sound either in this song. Mm-hmm. I think the writing wise, it's a good song, but I'm just not for me, this one. I'm not keen on Supersonic.
Would it be fair to say that like you're not really a fan of like the more anthemic kind of songs that they do?
No, I'm not. I'm really not. Like, I don't like most of the singles. My interest in Oasis is like the sort of the album tracks, you know what I mean, like Columbia and stuff, you know, and Slide Away and stuff like that. Like sort of things that were a bit less sort of shouted about, you know what I mean? Because I think that's where they were really at their coolest.
I think that was like one of the really good things, because even if you might not be a fan of the anthemic songs, like they had those that really kind of pushed them into like the public eye, but also like the songs that you did, like those album tracks were so strong, and it was such a strong
they've
base.
got him backed up,
that it wasn't one of those bands who like you hear the singles and you check out the album and it's like, oh, well, it's not really anything that I expected. Like they can't really back it up. They've got a few singles, but that's about it. But Oasis were like the complete opposite. Like, hey, we've got these singles, but also our album tracks, they're all going to be really solid as well.
Yeah, and like that's the thing, especially like coming from making music as well. When you're writing tunes, the singles usually are never your favourite. Because they're not, and I think that applies eventually. That then applies to the way that you listen to music as well, because your favourites become the ones that are interesting. You know what I mean, or the ones that have a certain kind of. And then again, as I suppose, maybe I'm just more predisposed to more sort of melancholy music. Do you know what I mean? I don't like quite a lot of happy music. You know what I mean? And I think that's what is so interesting about this album is that beneath it, it's actually quite a split album. You know what I mean? It's quite interesting in that way.
Well, why do you think that is, that you don't really like you said, like happy music? You're more melancholic.
This is going to sound really blunt. I'm just not that happy a person. I mean, I am and I'm not. I love the crack. I love a laugh. Do you know what I mean? But like, generally, because I listen to a lot of music on my own, it's when I'm on my own that I think, you know what I mean, the sort of more melancholic side of my personality comes out, because I am quite sad a lot, you know what I mean? But I think that within that you can have this little bubble of, I don't know, it's like the best way I can describe it as, you know, like a spirit level, which is quite an, considering it as spirit in as well, that could be quite an interesting juxtaposition. I might use that in a fucking song. That's a good idea. Anyway, so imagine a spirit level, and like you've got like a sort of the green bit, like the sort of level of just, it's like generalized sadness, and then that little bubble in the middle of it. It's not, I wouldn't call it happiness. I'd call it sort of I don't know how best to describe it. I think hope is a bit too weak of a word. It's more kind of ambition, I think. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
I don't get happy, I get angry, but I get angry in a happy way. It's really hard to describe, but like this music, like this album, the album tracks just did that for me. And a lot of the music I listen to does that for me, where I'm not too bothered about sunshine, happy time, rainbows. Do you know what I mean? It's just like I like that kind of more, longing kind of thing. You know what I mean? There's a lot of longing in music.
Yeah, Sean, you brought up something really interesting at the start of this conversation. You said that Oasis, it's more kind of communal listening, whereas you like to
Yeah.
listen. So you've mentioned a few times now, you like to listen to music more by yourself, and that in itself is a really interesting point of. I think you're right, and I think that's why, as much as you hate it and you said before, but like it's really one of the strengths of this band is that all through the north, people will just go up to strangers who are performing music and be like, "Can you do some Oasis? You know, Wonderwall
Yeah.
and all that stuff." And that's why there's always that cheesy guy at the party who cracks out the guitar, and it's become like a comedic trope, isn't it? That if someone's got a guitar, oh, what are you going to do? Start playing Wonderwall, like.
Yeah.
But it's kind of one of the strengths of Oasis that everyone just goes to that automatically in their mind, even though like this album, it came out what 26 years ago.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing. Yeah, you're right. It does bring people together. You know what I mean? This kind of music, and it's very sort of accessible, but not in a way that makes it corny. You know what I mean? I think that's the strength of this album. It wasn't corny. It was bang on. Because if you listen to a lot of music in the fucking 90s, a lot of it's corny as all fuck. But
Yeah.
like, I mean, even some Oasis songs are corny as fuck later on down the line. But this particular album was like fucking catchy out of its head, but still had that kind of working class roughness about it that it was like, yeah, that's what it's fucking about. You know what I mean? And yeah, I think if you view it as a whole piece, because individual track by track, I don't think a lot of the tracks on this particular album are very good in their own right, like amazing in their own right. I think they're good, but I don't think it's their best work. Do you know what I mean? Whereas if you listen to the album in its entirety, start to finish, and you sort of look at it that way, then it's any song on that album, if any other band released it as a single, would make their career. You know what I mean? With
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
exception of Digsy's Dinner. But like, yeah.
No, definitely, and it's like I say, a very interesting perspective. But yeah, next up we've got "Bring It On Down."
Bring It On Down. A track that I think I don't have a lot to say about it. Like it's good, but I think to me this track seems a bit out of place. You know what I mean? It's not. I don't see how it fits on the album. You know what I mean? It doesn't really fit between Supersonic and Cigarettes and Alcohol. But I think it's still an all right track. I don't have a lot to say about it, to be honest.
I agree with you. It does seem like very out of place. Like even the start of the song, like "What's that sound ringing around your brain?" Today was just a
Yeah.
blur. You've got in your head like a ghost train. It's like it feels like a B-side, if I'm being completely honest with you.
Yeah,
And
it
probably
does.
just
It
filler
does.
for the album.
Yeah, it just sounds like the song they wrote before they wrote Cigarettes and Alcohol. It sounds like it's trying to be Cigarettes and Alcohol, and it's just not. Do you know what I mean? Same kind of subject matter, similar kind of sort of, garish guitar. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for my money, in complete honesty, this track could have been left off the album, if I'm being completely fair. Like I don't.
Yeah,
It doesn't really bring anything to the table for me. It kind of detracts a little bit.
yeah. I think we're unanimous on that. It's a no from me, Nigel. You know what I mean? And we're all good, mate. I don't know who Nigel is, but yeah.
No worries. So next up, me, you, and Nigel, we've got "Cigarettes and Alcohol."
Sorry, that proper tickled me. Cigarettes and Alcohol. One of the few sort of upbeat Oasis tracks that I can really dig. I mean, it's definitely ripping Get It On Bang a Gong Off by T-Rex, but again, it doesn't really matter. Like, it's banging. It's such a fucking good track. I do really love this track.
And this is a proper. I mean, a lot of the Oasis songs are, but this is a proper working class anthem. Not just that it's exclusively working class, but I think for a lot of working class lads at the time, especially, can you imagine being like 14, 15 when this came out? Or like maybe just a little bit older, like maybe let's say 18 to 21. You've just started a job, you hate your boss, you're working, whatever it is on the brickyard or whatever, and then like you hear this track on the radio, like all I need is cigarettes and alcohol, and it's like yes, this is my kind of meaning, not just meaningful life, but like these people are here representing me, and I think this is one of the huge parts of the Oasis appeal was how they could something so basic as a song titled "Cigarettes and Alcohol," but
Yeah.
it doesn't come off cheesy. It comes across like, yeah, we're lads off the estate, and we're representing you.
Exactly.
And like even just like the first lines of the song, is it just my imagination? Have I finally found something worth living for?
Yeah, that is one of my favorite lyrics on this album. Like, have I finally found something worth living for? Because I think anyone, you're right, who's had to work a shit job in their life, it must have been the same for you, like when you discovered comedy, when you just like, it's like a light goes on. And that thing is different for everyone. And I think that's a really nice way of summing it up. Like, is it my imagination, or have I finally found something worth fucking living for? Because it is true, mate. Like, I think it breaks out a lot. It's a breakout anthem for the drudgery of working class life. You know what I mean? It's a way of, we can get out of this. Yeah, it's a really optimistic track. I fucking love this song.
Yeah, you're completely right. Optimistic is the right word, and again, you touched on the thing about comedy, and yeah, you're right. Like, even though I wouldn't outrightly say it's something that I live for, when you have stuff like this in your life, it does really give you like a different, like a kind of second wind kind of thing, doesn't it? Because you're not just going through the 9 to 5 slog anymore. You've kind of got a different focus that makes that 9 to 5 slog worth it.
Well, that's the thing, yeah. Because I mean, that's the thing. You turn up at work and you're like, no, it's all right because none of this matters. Doesn't matter. And to have that feeling is quite a fucking powerful thing. It makes
it's
life
liberating,
worth living. Because I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, you know, we are in the top 1% of the 1% in terms of the world population. You know what I mean? We are thoroughly, thoroughly privileged human beings. But it doesn't make it any less depressing. Like turning up to fucking having to just wake up and go to a job, which like most of the time you're just like, why the fuck am I here? And it just breaks out of that alienation cycle of just being like, what is this it? I think everyone thinks it a lot, but I find I'm in my mid-20s now and I'm just like, that feeling is very song like, is this it? Is this it? No fucking way is this it. I can't do this till I die. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people, most people, maybe even all people, I don't know. I can only speak from my own experience and people who I know, but like, I think everyone has that thought at some point of just like, is this it? Is this all there is? Do you know what I mean? And I think this song is like the anti that. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, no, that's not all there is, and there's a way out. You know what I mean? Or even if it is all there is, there's a way of it being less painful. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's very basic's the wrong word, but it is kind of basic in its tone of like, it can be something as simple as cigarettes and alcohol can get you through.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's stuff out there, and it's not hard to find. Like even something as simple as this can make it worth living. And like,
yeah, definitely
the inspirational factor in it, and like, because I've had jobs in the past which I've absolutely hated, and you know, to have people like Oasis there to be able to speak for me when I was in that position. Is absolutely classic, and it's priceless as well.
Mm-hmm. Especially now, I mean, that's the thing is that especially we need tunes like that now. So, I mean, Christ, we're all in our homes locked up while there's a disease ravages the world for the foreseeable future. Like, if there was ever a time that we needed a tune to be like, hey folks, it's gonna be all right, it's now. Do you know what I mean? And I think that this tune was that.
I think it was. It's a real kind of rallying cry, and I think that's why so many people love Oasis, because you can just relate to them, and you can just not just that, but you can kind of live vicariously through them, because like
you do.
This is going to be a question I was going to ask you later on, but like with all the stuff we used to see in the media about what Liam Gallagher was doing and all the excesses and stuff like that, like you can kind of like, even though that's not your life, you can be like, yes, lad, go on, you've made it out of where we've come from. You've made it off the council estate. You've made it out of the crap job where you weren't earning any money. You're going all over the world. You're doing all this stuff, and you're singing about it for me now.
Yeah. Of just like, at least I know exactly what you mean, and it's a really fucking beautiful thing. Is that you just kind of like, one of us made it. You know what I mean? Like, not just made it, like made it to the point where the name is going to be etched upon the history of music forever in this country. And like, just one of us, just some lad from Manchester. You know what I mean? Because
Definitely, and people who are fans of Oasis, they really take like the real like proper hardcore fans of Oasis. They take it as like they are one of us. If you slag off an Oasis song to them, they take it personally because
yeah,
that connection was really made and it was really made strong. And when I went to watch Oasis at Heaton Park, I don't know if you remember it, but it was the one where the generator blew twice.
oh yeah.
Yeah, I was at that gig and like when I was there, I lost touch with my mate. And my mate had gone, but all around me was people of all different ages and like different financial backgrounds as well. But they were all there for Oasis because Oasis had touched them at a time in their lives where it was so relatable. And
yeah.
regardless of if it hit you in 1994 when it came out, or whether if you're 15 years old now and you're just putting it on and I'm a rock and roll star, you hear it and you go, wow, what is this? I want to be a rock and roll star. Yes, you can really relate to, they're not characters, but you can really relate to the people who are on stage singing and playing the music.
Yeah, definitely. And like that's what it's fucking all about. You know what I mean? That's precisely what it's all about, is just that's the thing about fucking music, mate. That's what makes it so beautiful and amazing, is that it doesn't matter. Like beneath it all, it doesn't matter. We all love a good hook and a good beat. You know what I mean? And obviously, you know, there's people who aren't fans of Oasis, but I think that like that many people can't be wrong. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And I think that's something beautiful about that. That many people can't be wrong. And it's just, it doesn't matter where you're from or what you do or whatever. We're all here because we fucking really dig this band. You know what I mean? And like, it sounds really simplistic in the way I'm expressing it, but it's the fact that most of those people you're never going to meet or have any kind of actual, you know, interpersonal connection with or relationship with. But at some point, their brain did the same thing as your brain in the same way. So you came here. You know what I mean?
Definitely,
and it's the fact
definitely.
that like that on a mass scale is fucking amazing. You know what I mean?
And definitely, and not just the fans as well. Like people, everyone who's in a band, I don't care what kind of music you listen to. I think everyone kind of respects Oasis and sees them as kind of figures of like, wow, you did it, so like I can do it as well. And like I think a lot of bands, especially on the indie scene, would be like, oh, we secretly kind of wish we were Oasis.
Mm. I mean, everyone does. I know I do. I think everyone does. I think everyone wishes they were in Oasis, mate. Like everyone wishes that their music was. But I mean, fucking hell, I would have loved to have written Definitely Maybe. You know what I mean? But like, alas, 'twas not so. But that's the thing, is that I think the main reason it had a big effect on us, because the main reason you write music is you're just like, what if we're the next Oasis? Do you know what I mean? And like, I don't think it's a sort of a statement of kind of ego to say that. You know what I mean? I think it's more just kind of, yeah. And I think that like even Oasis didn't know they were going to be Oasis. Do you know what I mean? And that's the beauty of it. You know what I mean? You never know. That's the beauty of doing art and wanting to pursue it. You never know, it might blow up. I mean, fuck me, you wish it does and you hope it does. And like, if it doesn't happen, to be honest with you, I don't know what I'm going to do if we don't end up making a living from music. I don't know how I'm going to have a life that I'm going to find satisfactory. But I think that's what they do for you. Do you know what I mean? Like your favourite bands, they just kind of like, no, it's possible. You know what I mean? That's what Oasis do. They make it possible. You know what I mean?
Definitely, it comes across in the music as well. Like I said, the very first track, "Tonight I'm a rock and roll star." He's coming across saying, "Right, I want to be this. I want to be that," and like we all feel that same way, of that same want and that same desire.
Listen, I've got £87 million in the bank. I've got a Rolls Royce. I've got 3 stalkers. I'm about to go on the board at Manchester City. I'm part of the greatest band in the world. Am I happy with that? No, I'm not. I want more.
Next up, we've got Diggsy's Dinner, which I've got a confession to make. All my life, I thought this was called Diggsy's Diner until you said Diggsy's Dinner before, and I went, "Has he said that wrong?" And then I double checked, and it's Diggsy's Dinner. And all my life, I called it Diggsy's Diner.
Yes, mate. No way. That's as if I've just got to witness that, because like that kind of shit happens to me all the time.
Yeah,
you're just kind of like, oh, is that what it's called? Like I called Wi-Fi Wi-Fi for like 4 or 5 years. Like, until someone fucking corrected me. Same with like Nirvana. Like until I were about 15, I called them Nirvana until someone fucking corrected me. They were my fucking favourite band.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Pronouncing my fucking favourite band's name wrong. But anyway, yeah, Diggs' Dinner. Again, one of my favourite tracks on the album, just because I think, for some reason, I find it really interesting the fact that the lyrics are so inane and so pointless. But like, I kind of love it. Do you know what I mean? Like, what a life
Yeah.
it'd be if you could come to mine for tea. We'll have lasagna.
I know, it's so stupid, and like literally just before this podcast, I was doing a podcast about the Smiths with a mate of mine who's in a band as well. I don't know, there's something about Manchester bands, they like just doing silly songs every now and then, don't they?
Apparently, the story behind it is that they had a mate called Diggsy who was a big stoner or something like that, something along them lines. And I think like they wrote this song about him as a joke, and he really didn't want it on the album, but then they put it on anyway or something like that. And it was just made me giggle. It just always makes me giggle. But yeah, a really good track. Again, it's really funny, and I wish I could see him perform it live, to be honest, because I bet you this would be a laugh to watch live.
Oh, definitely. And penultimate song of the album time, Slide Away. What do you think of this one?
Oh, absolutely beautiful song. One of my favourite Oasis songs. Pretty fair, it's one of my favourite songs, full stop. It's a really, really beautiful track. Lyrics are pristine. The melody is amazing. The backing vocals on the outro, where it's like, don't care, all I know is that you can take me there. What a beautiful bit of lyrics, you know what I mean? And just the lyrics in general on this album are just fucking mind-blowing. On this song, are just fucking mind-blowing. And it's just perfect. You know what I mean? I think this is kind of like a fan favourite as well.
Definitely, I really like Slide Away as well, and yeah, it's just a quality song all over. I wish I knew more about music so I could talk about more about the production and the guitars and the drums and the bass and how the lyrics sound, but I just don't. I just know that I like it.
Fair enough. I mean, it's something that I often want to talk to people about, because like most of the people I know are like really into their music, so like, or make it themselves. You know what I mean? Like, I'm in a very mad situation at the moment where like I'm in a group of friends of easily like 60 to 70% of them are musicians, and there's like 200 of us. Do you know what I mean? It's like a massive subculture in Manchester, and I'm just kind of like, what the fuck? Do you know what I mean? Like, and I don't know. It's kind of weird how I always just assume that people are into it. You know what I mean? That are like really as into music as I am, and it just kind of baffles me when people aren't, because I never know how to talk about it. You know, like when you say, oh, like, I just like it because I know I like it. Like, I just think that I wish I want to know what that feels like, because it's really interesting. Do you know what I mean? I suppose, you know, not having to sort of not mega dissecting it. You know what I mean? Because I kind of do it with everything. You know what I mean? And like, I find it quite difficult to just like something. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean, because I'm the same way with professional wrestling. Like, when it comes to wrestling,
right, okay.
I am way in the weeds. Like, honestly, for everything from like certain movements to this and styles of that and and you'd think it was just the basics. So I completely know what you mean, and like I wish I could just sit back and watch it like I could in the old days, but I just can't.
I know next to nothing about professional wrestling, so like I understand that there's very much a kind of almost like soap opera-ish comedies to it, and I understand that like from what I've heard of, like, you know, I've listened to like Scroobius Pip's podcast and stuff, so now I know a little tiny glimmer of a bit about it. From what I gather, like the actual professional wrestling circuit that isn't like the WWE is like more sort of live comedy than anything. Do you know what I mean? Or like live kind of performance than anything. Do you know what I mean?
It can be. The world of wrestling is like very, very varied, and like there are definitely comedy wrestlers on the independent circuit, but WWE have had them as well. But there's a lot on the independent circuit. Like there's a guy who flips people with his dick. I don't know if you've seen that, Joey Ryan.
No.
There's a guy called Orange Cassidy who just does everything in slow motion. There's two people had a social distancing match the other day where they didn't get within 2 meters of each other.
That's genius.
So
so go on then. What is it about it that interests you? Because I'm coming at this for completely having literal no idea of the appeal, because it's never really been something I've even thought about. What is it about it? What is it that that you watch? What is it that you're watching for?
Oh, it's hard to break down, but basically it's the theatrics of it and like the kind of mixture of, something's scripted, but it's also a live performance and like it's a team sport at the end of the day because you can't just do it by yourself. There's no such thing as one wrestler in the ring. There has to be at least two wrestlers in the ring, and then you're relying on them, and so much can go wrong because me and you can make up all the best plans in the world to even just, let's just say, do a podcast, and we could script out word for word, but it's never going to be what we've scripted out word for word, and that's just talking.
Yeah.
Imagine we're doing things with our bodies and like how much could go wrong, like as time goes on, we get slippery and sweaty and all that, so people can slip, and how heavy they are, and some of the stunts that they do. It's so involved. I wouldn't know where to start with it, to be honest with you.
I mean, would you say it as a kind of overarching narrative that
Oh,
you need
100%.
to buy into, though? Do you know what I mean?
Yes and no. I mean, it has its base value of it's good guys versus bad guys, and that like it's like a superhero film in that aspect of like you don't need to watch all the Marvel films. You can just turn one on, and you're going to realize who the good guy is. You're going to realize who the bad guy is, and you can kind of enjoy it. But you won't have the same appreciation for it as someone who's watched every single Marvel film and they remember all the storylines and this character's played by this person and this character died for.
Okay.
So
in terms of like a match, then, so from how I understand it, there's like you say, there's like two camps, and like there's people who, you know what I mean, there's kind of like you've heroes and your villains, as it were.
Sure.
Like the one thing I don't understand is how is it played out? Like it's because I've never watched a full wrestling match, so like what's the talking to actual people being physical ratio? I don't understand that. Because it sounds a lot like sort of live theatre. Do you know what I mean?
It is. It's a lot like live. It's basically pantomime, basically, because it very much relies on audience participation, like. And a lot of it is played to the crowd, which at the moment, with everything that's going on, the crowd isn't allowed to obviously go there. And for breaking down the fourth wall, the people are going to hear this afterwards, but like we're recording this the morning of WrestleMania. So WrestleMania is the biggest show of the year, but they can't have fans in there. So it'd be like having your biggest stand-up gig ever, and there can be no fans. There's going to be no laughter coming back at you, and that's what you base all your timing off, isn't it?
That's fucking weird, man.
Yeah, so it's the biggest show of the year, and it's going to be tonight. So they've already pre-recorded it, so people are hoping that they're going to fix it in production and stuff like that. It might look semi-decent. So we're going to see how it turns out.
So,
but,
is it? Yeah, go on. Does it ever go out live?
Oh yeah, it's live most of the time. Monday nights, Friday nights, and one Sunday a month as live shows.
What, like 365 all year round?
Yeah. Like they have no off season.
That's fucking amazing.
Yeah. And like one of the big things with wrestlers is they always say like we have no off season. Footballers, like baseball players, basketballers, they have an off season where they can go home, spend time with their families. We have 2 or 3 days where we can go home, but then after that we're back on the road, and we don't have a home pitch like you have a home pitch. We're traveling all over the world.
Yeah, I think that's really fucking intense. That's really intense.
It is, and then you've also got like the real life stories that build into the storyline stories. So like the first podcast, the only one that I've put out so far is the one with Kyle Porter, and we talked about WrestleMania 19, which was about 2003 that happened. And basically in that show, there's a lot of stuff that happens where they blend in reality with the storyline.
Okay.
So
how do you mean?
So like. The main event people who listen to that one are going to listen to this and they're going to do the same thing twice. But basically, the main event of that one was Brock Lesnar versus Kurt Angle. Real life story, Kurt Angle is a real life Olympic gold medalist in wrestling. And Brock Lesnar is a real life amateur wrestling, like mega wrestler.
He went to the UFC for a bit, didn't he?
He did. He was also, this was after this, but he was also UFC heavyweight champion, yeah. So then you've got this real life story of 2 real life wrestlers. Like they're not just the pretend pro wrestlers; they're also the real life wrestlers as well. They've both done it to an elite level. Who's the better guy? Kurt Angle went to the Olympics, so he went to a higher level, but he's also older and more injured. So they build that into the storyline of who's the better wrestler. Now they've both come to the WWE. Now it's pro wrestling. Who's the better guy? And then in the build up to it, Kurt Angle, they thought he was going to have to retire because he's had neck problems. Then also at the end of the match, Brock Lesnar does this, what's called a shooting star press, and he lands on his head. He basically jumps off the top rope and he lands on his head. And watching it, if you watched it live, you probably would have thought he died because I'll send you on YouTube later. It's, you know how big Brock Lesnar is.
Yeah,
if you know, he was in the
that's
UFC.
insane.
Yeah, like a 20-stone guy jumping upside down, flipping and landing on his head. Like It's just, and then obviously they go on and they end the match, and it's this brotherhood that's involved because you've got to protect each other. And one of the big things that wrestlers always talk about is we give our bodies to each other. Like, I'm reliant on you to make sure I get home safe to my wife and kids tonight.
Yeah.
And like, it's just so much that goes into it. You can watch it from the base aspect, which, like I say, I wish I kind of could do still, of just, oh, I wonder who's going to win this match, or even pretending it was real like when I was a kid. But yeah, there's just so much that goes into it, and also like, you kind of know what the company want. So like, sometimes you'll watch it and you'll know they're pushing this guy and they don't want him to lose, so he's not going to lose. So it kind of takes you out of the moment a little bit. Like when you watch Doctor Who, for example, you watch it and you know, regardless what the storyline is, he's not going to die. They're not going to kill Doctor Who off. He can't die.
Yeah.
So when you watch certain wrestling matches, they know, well, this guy, he's going to be around for a long time, and this guy's contract runs out in 2 weeks, so we know he's going to win it, and that kind of stuff puts you off.
That's like, yeah, I can imagine like once you get into it to that level where you know when people's contracts are expiring and stuff, it must take some of the. It's like when they kill off characters in TV shows. You know what I mean? It takes some of the magic out of it, doesn't it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Like you know things are going to happen. You know things like you have certain expectations, but at the same time, those certain expectations they can really make it good. So just one last wrestling story is I went to WrestleMania 30 in New Orleans about 5 years ago,
Oh fucking hell!
and it was amazing. But at the time, The Undertaker, he'd never lost at WrestleMania, which is the big show of the year. And it was like a really hyped up storyline that Undertaker's never lost at WrestleMania. For 20 years, he's never lost. In fact, he'd won 21 matches. He had a 21-0 record. And then he was against Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 30, and I was there. And no one in the arena thought Brock Lesnar was going to win. Literally no one, because everyone knows it's scripted and everyone knows that they're really pushing the Undertaker and they protect him at WrestleMania, and then Brock Lesnar won.
Fuck.
And there's a picture of me like where I've got my hands on my head in shock because I cannot believe what I've just seen. Like everything that I thought I knew about wrestling, they'd flipped it on its head and changed, and they've made Brock Lesnar the winner. And they've ended something that's taken over 20 years to build, and I was like, what? So yeah,
that's a really fucking intense moment to have witnessed. Like a 20-year legacy to have been ended. You know what I mean?
It was, and like basically one of my mates got famous off it because one of my mates was front row, and everyone in the arena was shocked, but the camera just happened to go on his face. And again, I'll show you this afterwards. So he became a meme, and like he's got like 20-odd thousand followers on Twitter. Like we went to SummerSlam in New York a couple of years later, and like everyone stopping and going, "Oh my God, shocked Undertaker guy! Can I get a selfie with you? Can I get a picture?" Like, because everyone who's a wrestling fan knows who he is.
That's amazing. Hold on, right. Let me just. What was it? You said shocked Undertaker guy.
Yeah, shocked Undertaker guy.
Right. Let me just quickly have a look at this because please Google this at home with us because I just need to see what kind of face we're talking about here.
Yeah, you Google Ellis.
Oh my God, I've seen this meme.
There you go. See, I told you. It's famous.
Oh God. That's amazing.
So like, that's my mate Ellis, yeah, and like, yeah, it's just wrestling. It's like a love and like, yeah, it's just great. Even like, I'm so far in the weeds that again, I said one last story, but just one final one. Every year for WrestleMania, they make loads of new merchandise, and obviously expecting they were going to ship it all to Florida and sell it all, but because no one's there, they can't sell it all. So now I'm looking online at all this merchandise, going, ooh. Some people might not buy this. I might buy it. It might be worth a couple bob in the future. But yeah, that's enough about wrestling anyway. We've gone way in the weeds. We were talking about Slide Away before. I think we covered Slide Away, so fuck it. We're going to go on the last song, the final song of the album, Married with Children. And a nice, somber song. When it came on, and I listened to this album again today, just so it was all fresh in my mind for when I talked to you. I listened to this, I was like, wow, I've not heard this in so long. And I really, really got back into it. The whole like kind of relationship breakdown of I hate the way you're so sarcastic, you're not very bright, your music's shy, it keeps me up all night, all that stuff. What do you reckon to this one?
I think this is one of my favorite, up there, one of my favorite songs on the album. I think the lyrics are fucking outstanding. They're really cool. You know what I mean? Like, your music's shy, it keeps me up all night. That's probably one of the fucking worst insults I can think you could say to someone. Your music's shite. Do you know what I mean? Like, because it's something that connects to the soul. Do you know what I mean? It's like your music's shite.
It's like
and
a piece of you, isn't it?
Yeah, and also like I hate the books you read and all your friends. Like it's the bitterness in it is beautiful, and it's not. I love the way that they've closed off an album on that note rather than having it like all big and anthemic. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's kind of a ballsy move if you think about it, because like Oasis are known and they were kind of putting across that old brash, ballsy, all the stuff we've been saying before, all that working class hero stuff, and now they've ended it with, oh, but we've actually got like an emotional side of us, and we are in touch with our feelings, and here's a piece of that.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, it's just a really cool song. It's just on an acoustic with a little bit of. There's nothing fancy, and it's true. Like I think for every guy that there is playing Wonderwall for a party, there's another guy sat in his room on his own playing Married with Children. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. That's quite a sad image now you mention it.
Yeah, but like, welcome to my brain.
Right,
But
so
yeah,
do you think that like their kind of like media personas like hurt their legacy, or like what do you reckon about that? Because that's one thing that I'm really
um,
interested in general. If you can separate the human from the art.
I think you can. I mean, look, a lot of that media stuff was a marketing ploy. Oasis's
Sure.
PR team were amazing. Do you know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, there was definitely elements of reality in there. Like Liam Gallagher, especially if you've watched the Oasis documentary. I can't remember what it's called now. Um, it's on Netflix. I can't remember what it's called. But the Oasis, I think it's called Supersonic.
I think it is supersonic, yeah.
And like you realise like a little bit more into these men's lives, and the fact that Liam Gallagher at that point was like quite a sort of like unsure man. Do you know what I mean? Like there's a beautiful bit where they talk about being on the Definitely Maybe tour, and this journalist comes downstairs, and Liam Gallagher stood there looking visibly like visibly shaken. He's like, "Do you think there's a God? Do you think there's a God? Like, is there a God?" And I think that like I think you can separate the people from the music, because I mean the person will always create the art, so obviously a part of them will always be in there. But I think that when it comes to someone's media persona and that, it's unfortunate that it has to be a factor, but unfortunately it does, and it did. Do you know what I mean? In the 90s, that it
Yeah.
had to be a factor because it was MTV, it was all that kind of stuff, and so for the first time we had very visual. I mean, we had eyes on our heroes at all time and in real time. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I think that that is always going to play a part in the music that you make and how that music has an effect on who you are and stuff like that. But I think you can separate it, yeah, because basically they were just lads having a good time. You know what I mean? Fuck it. It doesn't really matter. It's all about the music.
Yeah, true. And what did you think of Blur? Because the reason why we did this podcast, because I remember you were one of the first people who messaged me saying, "Yeah, I'll jump on that nostalgia podcast. I'll do it." But then when you put that online about saying that Oasis are better than Blur, I thought, right, we've got to do it on Oasis. It's got to be Oasis. That's going to be such a great topic. But what did you actually think of Blur?
You're a proper Blur Shandy boy and all that, innit?
I think Blur. I think they were all right. Like, don't get me wrong, they were fantastic. I think in terms of they were more interesting musicians, but I just don't think they were as. I don't know. I just don't think they were as successful in their execution. Like, I much prefer Damien
Mhm.
Albarn on his own and in Gorillaz than I do in Blur.
Right.
But I just think Oasis were just had more sort of more staying power. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I'm more of a Oasis fan than Blur as well. I mean, I always was. I was quite surprised that was ever a big thing. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
what do you think of the other albums then? Like, let's do a quick run down the albums. So we covered Definitely Maybe. What about What's the Story, Morning Glory?
A bit more of an interesting album. What Story Morning Glory is like one of my favourites. Cast No Shadows on there.
Love that song. Love it.
Yeah, beautiful. I mean, What's the Story Morning Glory? The actual song's amazing. I think Slide Away is on there, isn't it? Is Slide Away on Morning Glory? Sorry, not Slide Away. Champagne Supernova.
Yeah.
Yeah, Champagne Supernova's on there. So I think the second album, I think that they have that thing, don't they, called the difficult. Is it the difficult third album? Or is
I
it the
think it's
difficult
difficult
second
second album, yeah.
Yeah. Whereas I think that they had the opposite. where the first album sounded a lot more difficult to create than the second one. And it showed, like, that second one, they'd found the sound and then they just sat in it and just made it amazing. You know what I
mean? Yeah, definitely. So, what about the third album, Be Here Now? What were your thoughts on that one?
Definitely, I think they went back towards making more poppy rock kind of stuff. You know, I always consider Be Here Now a more singly album. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I got to admit, I'm not overly sold on Be Here Now. There's some okay tracks on it, but I'm not overly sold.
Yeah, I think I'm going to agree with you on that one. I think All Around the World was like one of the ones that I really liked, especially when I heard that like it was an idea that Noel had had for years that he wanted to do that, and then only when they got to this album he really had the production money to get it done. That was something that I really, really loved that song. I like Girl in the Dirty Shirt as well, but
yeah, it's a good song.
All right, what about Standing on the Shoulders of Giants?
No, this is my favourite album of Oasis's by far. Like, I just think that it's just, what a tune. You know what I mean? Like, what a masterpiece of a collection of tunes. Like, you've got Gas Panic in there, which is like this psychedelic kind of journey. It's like mega psych rock. You know, you've got Fucking in the Bushes. If you've seen Snatch, you've heard that song. Like, what a way to open an album. Go Let It Out, you know, again, just all that kind of Beatlesque pop is gone. You know what I mean? And they're just like a fucking rock band. You know, Who Feels Love, fantastic. Money Where Your Mouth Is. Again, like just... Again, it's like sort of cigarettes and alcohol-esque, but faster. You know, Roll It Over is another one of my favourite tunes from Oasis. Like, just, you know, just the way that the vocals have been mixed and stuff like that is beautiful. I mean, Little James is a bit shit, but whatever. You know what I mean? Whatever. Yeah. So, but yeah, I think that's by far my favourite of Oasis's albums for sure.
See, when you messaged me that and you told me that, I thought, is he telling the truth or is he being sarcastic? I can't see what's going on here.
No, straight up. Like, yeah, I fucking love that album.
I can sense it in what you're saying, but yeah. So, what about Heathen Chemistry then?
I mean, has anyone got anything to say about Heathen Chemistry? Like, I've never known anyone forever talk about Oasis and go, you know what? Let's put Heathen Chemistry on. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just kind of, it's all right. Do you know what I mean? It's okay. You know, Little by Little's on there. You know, Stop Crying Your Heart Out. But apart from that, it's just kind of, nah, it's just okay, innit? You know what I mean?
Joe, the one thing I will say about this song is, like, I grew up in the kind of culture of, like, music television, not just MTV, but like all the channels that were playing music at the time. And this is like the first time that like Oasis had brought out an album that like it was getting lots of play when I was watching it. So like some of these songs have got like a special place in my heart because they were like the first Oasis songs that I kind of heard independently. My brother wasn't playing them to me. I was hearing them like by myself for the first time. So it does have a little place in my heart because of that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I'll give like I say, everyone's sort of experiences of it, as we were saying before, are always going to be different. You know what I mean? So if you've had that particular, you know, experience around it, then you're bound to find it more meaningful. You know what I mean? So that's fair.
Sure. What about Don't Believe the Truth? This is the first one where, by this point, I was an actual Oasis fan. So I was excited when I heard a new album was coming out. Layla dropped. The Importance of Being Idle dropped. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I mean... Yeah, exactly. Like, Lila was an alright tune. Points to Being Idle, the same, yeah. But I think, to be honest with you, my favourite tune on this album was Let There Be Love.
I love that song.
Yeah, it's beautiful, and like the video is beautiful. Yeah, I definitely enjoyed the album, but I think I enjoyed other ones more. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I love Let There Be Love, but also The Meaning of Soul at the time, that was used on a lot of like football highlights packages. So at the time, I loved that one. And what about Dig Out Your Soul, the final Oasis album?
Dig Out Your Soul. I try to think. I don't actually think I've listened to it that many times.
Probably for good reason, to be honest.
Yeah, Shock of the Lightning's all right, but I think you can kind of tell on this album that like Noel Gallagher is fucking done. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he's just like I'm done like with Oasis now. It's done. It's over. Let's just get this album out and just get going. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, it got to that point, didn't it?
It definitely did. So we've established then the Standing on the Shoulders of Giants is your favourite album. What is your favourite Oasis song?
Ooh, that's difficult.
So make it a good one. This is the gun to head. This is the last question on the pod. What is your favourite song?
Listen Up. Listen Up.
Wow, that's come out of left field. I was not expecting that.
No, honestly, Listen Up has been my favourite Oasis song now since I was about 19, 25 now. It's a really beautiful, beautiful, meaningful song. Like the lyrics are fantastic. The feeling is beautiful. I just think, you know what I mean? I could happily just do the lyrics of it. I'm like, listen up. What's the time? Said today I'm going to speak my crime. Take me up to the, sorry, I'm going to speak my mind. Take me up to the top of the world. I want to speak my crime. And then that fucking chorus, one fine day, I'm going to leave you all behind. It wouldn't be so bad if I had more time. I wish I'd written that lyric. I wish I'd fucking written that. Because that sums up fucking everything. Like, it sums up everything that I feel about the world. Like, everything that I feel about my life, everything that I feel about just being alive. That is it summed up. Like, one fine day, I'm going to leave you all behind. And it wouldn't be so bad if I had more time. Like, fuck yeah. Do you know what I mean? And
yeah,
I just think that as well, I don't believe in magic. Life is automatic. It's just, I think it's a song that no one has even fucking clocked is a masterpiece. It's an absolute masterpiece. And it just gets overlooked. And that's another reason it's one of my favorite Oasis songs is that, like, no one is ever talking about Listen Up. But as soon as I introduce someone to it, they're just like, yeah, that's a fucking anthem, that. It's one of them things, once you've heard it properly and sat down and listened to it, you never think about it the same way ever again. Do you know what I mean? And it's just, yeah, I loved Listen Up.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to give it another chance now. Now, again, you've sold me on it. So I'm going to give it another chance.
I think it's on the master plan.
I think it is. I think it is one of the comps. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah. So. Yeah, honestly, if you do nothing else from this, just fucking listen Up. Like, it's just, it's so good. It's beautiful.
Right, Jake, thanks for joining me on the podcast today. Before you head off, is there anything you want to plug?
My band Rivet City has just released a single called Foot Slugger on all available platforms. By the time this goes out, we may also have a video for it on YouTube, so keep your eye out on that. It's Rivet City official across all the socials. I myself am getting back into stand-up soon, so that should be sweet. I'm also starting off a little radio show whilst we're all in isolation called What's West with Uncle Breeze. Check that out on the old Abbey Radio. I'll be making sure to share that from my own page and stuff like that. But yeah, please check out the band, see if you dig it.
Nice one. Definitely go and check out Rivet City. And Jake, thank you very much once again for joining me on the podcast today.
No worries, mate. Thanks for having me on anytime. I'll come back anytime.
That's it from us. We hope you enjoyed the podcast. Go and give us a follow on Podbean or Spotify or wherever you're listening to this. And I'll be back soon with more podcasts with more guests.
I'm going to stop talking now.